Go. Good evening or good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Hoops HD. This is our weekly Under the Radar podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined down below by John Slika, off to one side here by Rocco Miller. And that's it tonight, right?
No, I'm here.
Oh.
What would you call it for our colleague Galen, who's probably watching this in the middle of the night, which, by the way, congratulations to him and his wife on their new daughter.
Oh, right. Yeah. Go Galen. He's making people. This is the second one.
3 months, you got a team, right?
Right, he does.
This is our Under the Radar podcast where we go over all of the Under the Radar conferences. And John, can you tell us what it means to be under the radar?
Well, under the radar means you are not in one of the major conferences, namely the Power Five or other basketball-centric conferences like the Big East, the American, the Atlantic 10, the Mountain West, or the West Coast Conference this year. And the second qualifier is you cannot be in the top 25, otherwise you are on the radar.
Okay. And once again this week, as all season, none of these 22 conferences actually have somebody that is in the top 25.
It has been a minute, hasn't it? I think there's almost always someone from these conferences in the rankings, but it's been 2 years since we've had a team crack the rankings. We got one inching up and up and up, and we'll get to them later, but it's been a minute.
Well, I guess what we want to do is go through all these conferences, and I want to go start with the screen share here, and we will put up some standings and results. And we like to do a feature conference every week, and tonight's conference is the Big South Conference, and I guess we could just call this the Big Mess Conference, though, Rocco. Everybody within 2 games of first place, it seems, or at least 6 teams within 2 games there.
Yeah, it's very messy, but it's been incredible. I think we had another buzzer beater tonight, I heard, with Radford getting a huge win at High Point, which was a matchup of the top team in the league against the best defense in the league. High Point being the number 1 defense in the Big South. So good clash. I unfortunately didn't get to see it, but just a small example of how close and how much parity there is in the league. My personal favorite, though, has got to be Chris Clemens and the Campbell Camels.
Yeah.
He's an electric player, not just in the Big South, but nationwide. If there's anybody watching this right now and hasn't had a chance to see him play, go look up his highlights and watch a Campbell game before the end of the year.
Well, you want to talk about buzzer beaters? That game on Sunday against Radford, he did exactly that with the buzzer beater win.
Yeah. So another exciting league, but our year for this league. This league's always exciting. In fact, 6 teams separated by 2 games is a little bit more of a spread than what we're used to seeing at the halfway point. But what's crazy, Radford winning at the buzzer tonight against High Point. High Point wins that game. We have a 5-way tie for first place. Did you realize that?
Yeah. It's always crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I love it. The tournament at campus sites, or at least the what's the format? The number 1 team hosts. Is that right?
The opening round games are on campus sites, the 7-10 and this 8-9 game. Then the number 1 seed will host the quarters and the semis, and the highest remaining seed will host the championship. So
okay, so lots of excitement during the regular season because, again, like to get that first place and be able to host your way, have home court advantage all the way through, a pretty big deal. So lots of excitement. A big win for Radford, whereas under the old way, it just would have been like, yeah, that's nice, but we're still going to Myrtle Beach.
We're not going to Myrtle Beach. And so, Salika, you had a comment about them as well?
We also need to rewind a little bit because the conference's best rivalry in recent years has been Winthrop and UNC Asheville. Winthrop held serve at home this time, which also denied Asheville a share of first place with Radford for the time being.
So you're not buying my Winthrop versus Longwood Winwood Cup argument here, huh? No.
Not this year.
Steve Winwood Cup? No. Okay. Never mind that. Let's. There's
the long story behind that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've decided to start making our own trophy games. You'll catch on. How about that Rad Southern Cup game we've got coming up?
And we got
and the Camthrop Cup. Don't forget that Camthrop Cup.
Let's. I guess on that note,
everybody will. We're gonna get to the second or third conference, and everybody will have turned it off. We could do this all night.
It's a good thing we started with the Big South. So.
Yeah.
For those of you that decided to skip ahead because you just didn't know what the hell we were talking about, let's move over to the America East and start going through the rest of the conferences because this has been a disaster so far. In the America East, Vermont, though, still shorthanded and still winning games. Got a bit of a test from Albany tonight, but did end up pulling out that game by 11 there, David.
Yeah, a real nice win for Vermont. And again, running away from the league, kind of like what we expected. This was a team that you had on the 10 line, and you wonder how much they missed it by because I don't think they're going to lose the rest of the way. I really don't. They're winning these games as shorthanded as they are. Once they get everybody back, they'll be even better. And even if their profile is not a 10 seed, and it's not, are they 10 seed good? Like, is this one of those where you end up on the 12 line and it's a big, big headache for the 5 seed because while their paper is a 12, on the court they're actually better than everybody on the 9, 10, and 11, or a lot of them. This is a good Vermont team. I mean, remember, they took Kentucky to the wall.
Yeah, and Rocco, I think Anthony Lamb is scheduled to be back by the time we reach the NCAA tournament, which makes them even more dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's still up in the air, but there's a good chance he will. And tonight Albany actually showed up. It was, I think, when I checked the score at one point, and I think midway through the second half, it was only a 2-point game. So they actually played them pretty close most of the way until the end, it looks like. But Vermont, like we talked about last week, they've just, they're about 9 deep, and they're all solid without Lamb even. So they're head and shoulders above the rest. And UMBC, they seem to do well against the rest of the league, but they can't hang with Vermont at all. So.
And they did not even bother showing up against Albany on Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, and Salika, here's the upcoming schedule. Vermont actually has the weekend off. The next game will be next Wednesday at Binghamton, so they should easily get to 8-0.
Yep, and UMBC, they'll get chances to rebound against Stony Brook on the road and also a gimme at home against Maine here.
Okay, well, let's jump right over to the Atlantic Sun, where Florida Gulf Coast, Salika, the team we always gave up on early around the beginning of January, now 6-0 in conference play.
Yeah, we gave up on them as far as at-large chances, but then again, it's not like anyone else in this conference did. But we have to wonder, is Lipscomb starting to come out of their own coma a little bit? They did rebound with wins against Upstate and Stetson, but if you want to talk about a team with a somewhat legitimate rivalry, the Dolphins of Jacksonville are only a game behind Gulf Coast.
Yeah, that was kind of Jacksonville, North Florida, kind of neighbors there, but Gulf Coast, the rivalry
is the Gulf Coast rival in this conference. If you want to have a rivalry, and then Stetson's is nothing this year though. But I mean, Gulf Coast loss at Lipscomb last Thursday was the win at Lipscomb last Thursday is the one that really caught my notice though, David.
Yeah, and again, since conference play started, looking better than pretty much everybody else. 15-8 overall, 12-8 in real games, and but Lipscomb still, that was kind of astounding. Now they have rebounded a little bit from a 1-2 start to improve to 3-3, but 3 games back, there's virtually no catching Gulf Coast at this point.
Right, and with the conference tournament on home courts, Gulf Coast has a real good chance to have home court advantage if, of course, they can win that game Saturday at home against Jacksonville. The better under the radar games coming up this weekend there, Rocco, I think.
It is, yeah. And it's good on paper, but Jacksonville, I mean, I'm impressed they were able to win at NJIT. I think they were losing most of that game last week, and they pulled it out. So they're still hanging in there and fighting at 5-1. But they're not blowing teams out. They did blow out Lipscomb at home, which I was very surprised by. But I think talent-wise, Florida Gulf Coast has a lot more talent, and they are the most talented team in the league. Lipscomb's got the best player in Garrison Matthews, but don't have the depth that Gulf Coast does, and now Gulf Coast is starting to build that confidence. I think in the early part of the year, they just hit too many walls. They were playing so many road games against so many good opponents. They eventually caught up with them, and they hit a little bit of a wall. And now they're starting to regain that confidence, and they're enjoying the second season now.
Well, Rocco, let me stick with you in the Big Sky Conference, where we have another team here that's undefeated in conference play. Montana now 7-0, coming off of a nice road win against their rivals, Montana State, over the weekend.
Yeah, Montana did it again. And so, if you look at their 2 games later this week, they should coast into 9-0. I think it's Northern Arizona and Southern Utah both coming to Missoula. So it's going to be halfway through the Big Sky schedule unscathed for the Grizz, unless there's a shocker. And they have a lot of talent. They're a good team. It's not really a fluke. There's other good teams in this league too, but they've worked really hard to get some big road wins, and now they're set up very nice to be the top seed later on when the conference tournament starts.
Yeah, and this is a Montana team that Dave is just really starting to impress me at this point. I don't know that anybody's going to be able to. Yeah.
No, they won't. And I mean, because like they said, like some of the heavy lifting is already behind them, and they've got a 2-game lead, and they've sort of apexed and are on their way down the hill. I think they will cruise to 9-0, like you said. But some of the big games like the Nokoiwu Cup this week between Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington. Looking forward to that one, the Nokoiwu Cup.
How about the Nodakaho Cup on Saturday there too?
Yes, the Nodakaho Cup. That one's going to be good too. Oh God, we can do this all night long. Nobody thinks it's funny but us. But
let's go to the Big West, Stalika. Over the weekend, Hawaii with another home win. This time over UC Davis. The Bows just keep winning at home and are now 4-1.
They keep winning, and another team like Cal State Fullerton, who had jumped out to a 3-0 start, they've also lost 2 out of the past 3, and that's enabled Hawaii to get sole possession of first place for the time being.
For the time being, I still think that UC Santa Barbara comes back, ends up taking this conference. That's my gut feeling here. Santa Barbara this week at Fullerton and at Riverside there, David.
Yeah, they got to kick it in the gear though. They've kind of stubbed their toes, but when you look at it, they're only a game back of Hawaii. And while Hawaii's good on the island, are they good in California? And so I agree. I still feel like Santa Barbara's going to get it. Long Beach State, stepping into it after playing a schedule that was rough, but not nearly as rough as what we're seeing. 8-12 overall, but a real good start in conference for the Beach, too.
And you want to know something crazy? Hawaii still has only played 3 games on the mainland all year. And
yeah,
they're 1-2. They did beat a Northridge team that was dealt with some suspensions and injuries, so they got that one. But they did lose to Long Beach on the road, which is a middle of the pack Big West squad. And when you look at the rest of Hawaii's schedule, they get a nice long wait for Fullerton to show up on Saturday night again. They had another week like that before with Davis, so they're barely playing any games this month. But once February hits, they're cranking it into high gear. I think they play 8 games in February. Majority of those in California, and then they finish up the year at Davis and Fullerton. So I think when it's all said and done, I think Hawaii is going to end up somewhere around 10-8.
Yeah, and we've got again another big game coming up, the River Poly Showdown on this weekend for the River Poly Cup.
Rocco, over the Colonial, William and Mary did suffer the loss, the home loss against Northeastern. Bounced back with a nice road win over Elon. Now tied with Northeastern for first place here. And the teams that are not in first place, colleges, Charleston, Towson, Elon, the teams that we liked heading into the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Hofstra's, been playing better, but they I was surprised they ended up losing that Charleston game. I think they had a huge first half lead. And now with the Northeastern win over William and Mary, they've got a baby tiebreaker for the time being. But yeah, William and Mary, they just they either shoot the lights out and just put the game away early, or they're struggling from behind, and then a bunch of threes will get them back in at the end, and they'll go to overtime like the James Madison huge comeback miracle.
That did not happen Saturday or in the game last week either. Yeah, William and Mary just got destroyed is what happened. I mean, they were just blown to smithereens.
Well, David, it's very important that if one of these teams, William and Mary Northeastern, can finish ahead of College of Charleston in the standings. That way, when the conference tournament comes around, they get to go and wear white while playing at Charleston.
While playing in Charleston. So,
Right.
Again, not a fan of this format. I know that this league has a history. There was a time to where not every year, but probably 4 years out of 6 or 2 years out of 3, I guess, they were putting their first place team inside the bubble, sometimes pretty far. We've seen Wilmington end up with an 8 or a 9 seed. I forget what it was the one year. Old Dominion, VCU back in the day. I didn't this conference get 4 teams in one year? Or am I imagining it? It was at least 3. But anymore, ever since realignment, they have not had a single team inside the bubble that I can recall. So maybe they might want to look at moving their tournament to campus sites.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. And I was just going to add, the crazy thing about Charleston hosting the tournament, I know it's an awesome place to visit, and that from that perspective, it's a good idea. But it's the southernmost team in the league, and there's only 2 teams in the neighboring state to the north, and then everybody else is even further north than that. So maybe my West Coast view is kind of biased, but that seems a little strange to me.
Yeah, I liked it a little bit better when they're playing. The last few years they've been playing it in Baltimore. It's a little more central to the conference. I don't think they got very good fan turnout numbers there though. So, but
they can't just rely on the Towson fans to pack the arena.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's Towson.
You're not that far from Drexel, Delaware either, but those 2 teams have been down the last couple of years, so that was another issue. But there's the upcoming schedule real quickly in the Colonial. Some pretty good games, including that William & Mary Towson game coming up here Thursday night.
Yeah.
But Jalika, let's go over to Conference USA before David starts spouting off rivalries. And
I saw a good one, but I kept it. The Elon toe. The Elon toe.
We do have one rivalry. Now, we do have one rivalry that Chad mentioned in his write-up over the weekend, and that's 100 miles of hate involving Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky. And Middle Tennessee actually went on the road and ended up winning the first round after they lost a game at Marshall a couple days prior. So this puts them in a 3-way tie with Old Dominion, but I believe Middle has also beaten Old Dominion earlier in the year to own all the tiebreakers for the time being.
No, Western did.
That was actually WKU that beat Old Dominion.
Yeah. Kind of a surprising result, that game being at Western Kentucky. And Middle, while their record was really strong, they didn't seem as dominant as they were a year ago. And I thought Western Kentucky was playing really well. So I wasn't expecting it. I mean, I'm not totally bowled over, but I was very much expecting Western Kentucky to win that game. And it was a defensive battle if you watched it. I mean,
right.
Not a whole lot of offensive flow in that game. But again, huge win for Middle Tennessee to go up to Western. That's not an easy place to win, especially when in a big game like that where the crowd was out and up for it.
And meanwhile, let's also take a look at a once proud program in Charlotte. They came into the Atlantic 10 in 2006, were expected to do great things, and now they are on the verge of not even qualifying for Conference USA's tournament at the rate they're going.
Well, and they fired their head coach mid-season and everything, but they never should have gone to Bobby Lutz, but that's another story. Rocco, here's the question: Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, is this a 2-bid conference?
Right now, I think it is. I still think Western Kentucky's profile holds up as an at-large. Now, again, they're going to have to lose in the conference tournament for it to be a 2-bid league because Middle Tennessee's profile did improve, but even winning out from here, I don't think it's going to be quite enough. So They need the Western Kentucky to carry that at-large flag, and then Middle Tennessee, Old Dominion, perhaps Marshall, UAB win the tournament. Then we're talking about a two-bid league. Now, WKU stubs their toe against anybody below number 5 right now on the board. We're probably in deep trouble.
Yeah, David, not much in terms of key games coming up this week in the conference, as maybe the Marshall Western Kentucky game is the most interesting on that list there.
Yeah, probably so. Again, the top of this league really intriguing, at least with the top 4 teams, maybe 5 if you throw UAB in there, although they've been kind of disappointing. But then it's Southland-esque once you get below that. And, you know, there's just no real showcase matchups this week.
Which is
and
why
it's just no fun.
Right.
Yeah, it's no fun anymore when Tim Floyd's no longer there at UTEP, so that really disappoints.
Yeah.
That's why I also highlight the UTEP at Middle Tennessee game, because this is going to be a little bit of a revenge game for Middle, because this was, I think, the last game they lost in Conference USA before going on a run in late February last year.
Yeah.
Nick,
it was quite shocking.
We have a 2-way tie now at top of the Horizon League standings following Milwaukee's upset win over Wright State. Stalika, you're a Cincinnati guy. What happened there with Wright State?
Well, this is actually the second time that Milwaukee's been able to score a win of note at home. Let's not forget they also beat Loyola Chicago back around December. But as it turned out this week, both NKU and Wright State were both playing the Wisconsin schools, and NKU actually did get the sweep of Milwaukee and Green Bay. So now they're back in the first place tie for now.
I got to pull up that wonderful Milwaukee profile with the Loyola Chicago win at Iowa State, Wright State, and then look at this quadrant 4 losses, including Concordia St. Paul and Owens.
Yes. That is I mean, I was about to say in conference they've beaten Wright State, and that's a third of their wins.
You know, on the Hoops HD report, we talk about, on the bracket rundown show, we talk about, thanks to Joby, schizophrenia with the major teams. And then when you get down in the under the radar teams, you get extreme schizophrenia, which is Milwaukee.
Right, yeah.
But, Wright State.
To win it and lose at home to Concordia, unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
Wright State.
Big
Northern
game coming up on Friday.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Wright State does have that road win at NKU, which gives them the edge here, and they get the rematch at the Nutter Center on Friday, February 16th. So we got a couple weeks of coasting, unless Wright State slips up against Oakland on Sunday.
Yeah, huge week actually for Oakland at NKU at Wright State. If Oakland can get back in the thick of things here, this is the week for them to do it.
Right.
But David, over in the Ivy League, where we are getting a few more games, we're still not fully into the full double weekend games of the Ivy League season, and I don't think we're going to be so for another week. But not much happened this week in the Ivy, though.
No, Penn, I still like them. I mean, I know they went to Temple and lost, but they were at least competitive. And there's just been no – I mean, what happened to this league? I really thought it was 12-13 line. That's where we're used to seeing it. It's looking like a 16 seed this year.
Yeah, there's the upcoming –
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Chad. If Princeton takes the bid, they should be higher than a 16 because they have the USC win on the road. But, there are some questionable losses in there already, even for Princeton. But that's their best hope for any seed, like around 14 or so. And then as far as upcoming – yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say Princeton could give it all back this weekend if they lose at home to Rowan. So,
yeah.
Actually, I don't think that counts against them, does
it? The committee would not enjoy that. I could see the committee not liking that.
Get you a one-way ticket to Dayton. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
we have another team that we'll mention later that also had a non-D1 loss.
But anyway.
Anyway, I guess let's move on here. And
How about that
John,
that Mouth Brown rivalry, that Mouth Brown Cup coming up?
Mouth Brown Cup. On the Metro Atlantic, we had the big game there between Canisius and Iona. Canisius getting the win. That was swept Iona on the season, in fact.
That was huge.
Yeah.
That was absolutely huge. I was impressed. And this Canisius team, it looks like they'll be in it till the end at least. If not, run away with it. So, that gives them a sweep over Iona. And, you got to figure Iona is going to stay towards the top half. Ryder's been kind of all over the place. And I thought they would be a little bit stronger coming out of non-conference when they won on that buzzer beater at Penn State. They had another couple close calls with some major teams. So I don't know what to think of Ryder still. And Canisius is the only team that's been really solid.
And they also had a pretty strange ending to the game between Canisius and Iona on Sunday, because I think there were 8 seconds remaining where Iona was able to force a tie-up, but since Canisius had the arrow, they inbounded the ball. It took Iona 6 seconds to foul, but ended up undercutting a Canisius player and ended up picking up an intentional in the process.
Yeah.
So it wound up Canisius hitting 1 of 2 free throws, and then they inbounded the ball and ran out the clock to win the Canona Cup.
Coming up this weekend here, David. David, coming up this weekend, for some reason the games are all double listed. They're only going to play them once, but this is a triple at Nassau Coliseum with Quinnipiac Fairfield, Marist Monmouth, and the nightcap of Iona Manhattan, one of the best rivalries in Metro Atlantic. But if you're in the Long Island area, get out there for MAC Day.
Yeah, and I hope that, I don't know, I kind of wish they would have left my Iona Manhattan at home. In one sense, it's kind of cool that they're going to be playing in a bigger venue, but in another sense, it's 2/3 of the fans there are there to see other games. Is it going to kind of zap what really is one of the better under-the-radar rivalries, and really one of the better, depending on how you define better, rivalries in college basketball? We love this Manhattan-Iona rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of it? I'm curious to see, what do you guys think of this? Is it going to feel like Manhattan-Iona?
I'm concerned about that too, David. I think I would have liked to see the other two just be a doubleheader and keep Manhattan-Iona, separate and on home court. I think I don't know. I know the Manhattan-Iona game is always usually, no matter how good or bad each team is almost must-see TV. So
yeah, it is.
Hopefully the atmosphere doesn't take a hit.
You almost wish they would have had Ryder and Siena here just so we could have the 1-year anniversary of the air handshake.
Yeah. Oh, it was great.
I'll tell you the other bad part of this. Unless something changes between now and this weekend, from everything I'm seeing, there is no coverage, no streaming or anything of this triple header. So if you're not there, you don't even get to see any of these games, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. I didn't realize that. I really didn't. Well, now I really don't like it.
Again, unless you live near Nassau Coliseum. Mid-American Conference, Buffalo now 4-0, nice win at Western Michigan. Followed it up with a home win over Eastern Michigan last night, though. Again, Rocco is. I guess maybe the question is what about Toledo on the other side? Now 6-1.
Toledo's red hot. Toledo is on fire. They're a team to watch. Definitely, but Buffalo is just playing heads and shoulders even better than Toledo. The way that they're beating teams, the game last night, they were Eastern Michigan hung in there for a little bit, and then Buffalo just blew the doors off. Any sign of an interesting game lately with Buffalo has turned out to be a blowout, and so they're just playing on another level. Toledo's playing on the second highest level easily, and then there's a big drop off down from 3 to 13. I'm sorry. 12.
And this is kind of, David, unusual for this conference. This is kind of unusual in this conference.
It really is.
8 through 13. We got that should say 1 through 6 there.
Yeah, that is.
But
yeah,
David, this is unusual for this conference to have to have two teams run away like this is a lot more competitive normally, isn't it?
Right, normally, and we always talk about Akron and Ohio and Kent State, and it seems like every year we're saying if one or two of them can run away from the rest of the league, they're going to land inside the bubble, but no one ever does it. And here's Buffalo, and they've done some of the heavy lifting. It isn't that their schedule was, backloaded and they just hadn't played anybody yet. They've played and beat some really good teams. And I guess when you start to look at the metrics, and you look at that RPI, now nothing else really jumps out, and I know the committee looks at all of them, but an outright first-place team with an RPI like that is categorically a team the committee, at least up until maybe last year, would always take.
Yep.
And my thing is, Buffalo not really getting anything – they didn't get that signature tournament caliber win out of conference, but they are really good. And there's not really – can we look at their profile, Chad? Can you pull that up?
Yeah, they don't have anything in the first quadrant. So.
Yeah, but there isn't really anything bad on there. Well, yeah, sort of. Oh, wait, that's not Buffalo. Yeah.
South Dakota State neutral is probably their worst loss, which is not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. So, again, is there enough here for the committee to take them?
Well, but
it's more –
you look through the schedule, no top teams left.
Yeah, there's not.
And David, it's more about, especially with the recent committees, and I agree with what you're saying. In years previous to the last couple, they've been taking teams with great RPIs, even if they didn't have the marquee win to go with it. The last couple committees would leave a team with a profile like this out. Unfortunately, we saw it with Middle Tennessee last year. Just based on where they were seated, you have to assume. And then, so we've seen it on some other examples, and it's really unfortunate because, Buffalo, the way they're playing, they didn't even have Wes Clark until, I think, December 28th.
Yeah.
And, from Missouri. So, they have him and C.J. Massenberg. This is a team that nobody wants to see in the bracket.
Right.
And, that's not an easy MAC tournament to win, although it does look like it's a two-dog race with them in Toledo at this point.
Yeah, and they don't do the ladder anymore, so they're going to have to win a quarterfinal game, which is,
right. Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're a team like Miami or Kent State, there's still the incentive of at least finishing among the top four, so you can at least get a bye into Cleveland and not have to play an opening round game on campus.
Yeah.
If we had the bracket busters back, it'd be great.
Yeah, it would be because, Buffalo, New Mexico State, how great would that game be?
Yeah, that's exactly the matchup I was thinking of.
Yeah.
There is the upcoming schedule. Buffalo's at Ohio and Kent this week. Toledo hosting Bowling Green and Ball State. And we really need bracket busters back. But, John, I'm going to give you the MEAC.
Yeah, we had an interesting game on Monday night involving North Carolina A&T and Howard. Howard actually led the game by 10 points at the under 4 timeouts, but A&T was actually able to go on, and I believe it was an 18-8 run to end up forcing the game into overtime. But unfortunately, Howard had all the momentum once they got into the extra frame and were actually able to upset the Aggies here to put Bethune-Cookman into sole possession of first place.
Are you still feeling Morgan State out here, Chad?
Now, Morgan State with a rough week, including the loss to Coppin State. I love the North Carolina A&T story. NC Central, Bethune-Cookman, I think it's that 3-dog race there. Savannah State not eligible for the MEAC tournament, so maybe they can win. Maybe Savannah State can win the regular season title.
You really hate that APR issues at Savannah State. It's very, very low resources, and they've had their issues. I'm actually don't ask me why, but I'm actually kind of familiar with some of what's happened there, and you just hate it for them because you do know that after next year the plan is for them to transition down. Yet here they are. 5-1 in the league, what could be a good story, and to generate some interest to maybe where they don't want to transition down after all, and they can't play in the tournament. And I mean, what in this Savannah State program? Not to go off on a tangent. I know that we normally just skip over this, but they had the roughest transition ever. Weren't they 7-79 or something in that 4-year span. I mean, it was NJIT-esque. Yeah, I mean, really bad. But they really did turn it around, and they were a first-place team in this league just 3 or 4 years ago. And I really, really hate that. I think that I think there's some politics involved in it as well. A lot of people within Savannah State do not want to go down, but the state is kind of leaning on it and forcing the issue. But here they are. I mean, and I know the MEAC is at the bottom part of Division I, but they're 5-1. They shouldn't have to go down.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Upcoming schedule, key game kind of Saturday, North Carolina Central versus North Carolina A&T. So that could tell us who is going to be maybe battling with Bethune-Cookman for the next couple of weeks here. But Rocco, Missouri Valley Conference, we just saw tonight Loyola go in, and even though the final score was pretty big, Drake did give him a battle for most of that game.
Drake is so well coached. Nico Medved has surpassed and is way beyond expectations in year one. They are just a treat to watch. I've got a chance to watch most of their Missouri Valley games, and they're simply just grinding out wins and they're playing smart. They don't turn the ball over. It's fun to watch. But this Loyola Chicago team is no joke. With Clayton Custer in the lineup, they're 15-1. The only loss coming in, I think, in his first game back in the or maybe the game he got hurt. I should say. I apologize. But they're 15-1 with Custer in the lineup, and this is a team nobody wants to see, and that includes the win in Gainesville. The MVC does have a legitimate team. Unfortunately, they picked up a couple of bad losses, which won't give them more than likely the profile to be in at large. But at this point, the way they're playing, I really can't see anybody beating the Ramblers in St. Louis.
But I can also tell you one other thing. If I were Loyola, I certainly would not be pleased to see a team like Northern Iowa in a potential 8-9 game, because that has trap written all over it.
Northern Iowa is no longer living to me.
They are awakening from their slumber, so I would be terrified of playing a team like them in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Why does Northern Iowa insist on taking the month of January off? Anyway, go ahead,
Creighton,
I wouldn't be too worried about that, John.
Yeah.
I just don't think Northern Iowa finishes 8th or 9th. I think they end up in 4th or 5th place, which may be a semifinal matchup for Loyola, but I don't think it's going to be a first-round matchup. What's up next? The Northeast Conference, David. Here it is. Northeast Conference standings on the screen now. Bobby Moe and Wagner tied for first.
I like this Wagner team. Nice win over the weekend against St. Francis, Pennsylvania. Again, another conference front runner. I just like the way Wagner's playing. What's that? Or not over the weekend, but last week. I'm sorry. Yeah, they beat Bobby Moe over the weekend. So again, what a week for them with wins against SFPA and or STFU. I'm sorry, and Bobby Moe. And
real fun.
Picking up that Wag Bob Cup.
The top 7 teams within 2 games of each other, though, with home court advantage at stake here. So it is the conference tournament. So it is a real fun conference.
Every week it is,
And Wagner's really getting it done on the defensive end. They only allowed 49 to Robert Morris on Saturday. They've been they have the number 1 defense in the NEC, and they haven't given up over 60 since December. I'm sorry, over 69. They haven't let a team get into the 70s since December.
There it is. Yeah. Round 2 of the WAGMO Cup coming up this weekend, David. So actually, huge week with Wagner at SFPA at Robert Morris. Huge week.
Right. Huge week.
That's a pretty quick back with Robert Morris.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is strange there. We'll have to double check that that's even correct, but I think it is.
It's odd that they would play in back-to-back week.
It is correct.
Listen, it is correct. Okay. Okay, Ohio Valley Conference. The game of the season so far, I guess, John, was this past week when Belmont took out Murray State at home and now is in sole possession of first place.
They get sole possession of first place in that one, and they were also careful not to avoid the letdown, but actually ended up blowing up Austin Peay on the road. So good to see Belmont get a little bit of separation. And even another team we have to kind of look at that's even below the radar here, a hard luck Morehead State team has quietly put together a couple wins themselves, including a win against Tennessee Tech at home, because much like Clemson last year, they've been getting into a lot of close games and ended up losing a lot of them.
And I'm excited about Belmont. Sorry, Chad. I was just going to add, I'm excited about that Belmont win and them being in first, because that actually gives, I know this is under the radar, but it gives the Washington Huskies 4 wins over teams in first place. That would be Belmont, Bethune-Cookman, Kansas, and Montana. And if the committee cares about, beating teams in the field, that can add to the bubble resume if the Huskies are hanging around.
The other thing about Belmont, 15-6 overall. 2 of those losses were in the Battle of the Boulevard. Games they usually win. Without that, I mean, is Lipscomb enjoying this a little more, because with those 2 wins, is Belmont in the bubble conversation?
It's a good question. I think they've been pretty close. They had a strong non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, real good question there. One note I would say here is that, you mentioned at the bottom of this conference, you do need to finish in the top 9, I guess, to make the OVC tournament. If SEMO is going to continue to be where they are, SEMO ineligible for the Ohio Valley, only top 8 teams will make the conference tournament.
It's nice. In one game separating the bottom 6 there. So real exciting. Oh boy. Anyway,
Belmont with a couple home games this week against teams that they should beat up on, as Murray State does as well. So I don't expect much of note to come out of this league this week, unless there's a major upset. But David, over in the Patriot League, Bucknell, I think they finally got it figured out.
I think so too, and I say that and watch them go out and absolutely blow it. But I think they've won 7 in a row, and 8 of their last 9, obviously, since conference play started. But I think they've won 7 in a row, and they seem to be they seem to have had the corner turn. 2 really big wins last week, and pretty decisive too, against 2 pretty decent teams like Holy Cross, blowing them out, and then the blowout win against Navy. So is Bucknell finally back? And if they are they a potentially dangerous team in the round of 64? Because their profile won't show it, but it's the same team that they had last year that was so impressive all throughout conference play, and then really squeezed West Virginia hard last year.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And we're going to – and Rocco, they get their big revenge game coming up this weekend at Boston U. That was their early loss in Patriot League play.
Right, yeah, and Boston U's kind of backed down since then. They were in first for a minute. So yeah, Bucknell, like David said, made great points about their margin of victory in these 7 games. Back in the early part of January, they had that OT road win at Lafayette, but since then, it's pretty much been all double figures, the closest game being an 8-point win at Loyola. So I agree with you guys. I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll keep this rolling, but the profile still is not good, and they can't do much about that anymore. So this group brings up a really good point, because I can't see them really getting – 14's got to be the ceiling, but maybe even fall into a 15, and that would be a really interesting first round.
I think that they may get a 14 should they pretty much not lose again, and they're good enough to not lose again. I see them getting a 14. Almost the committee saying, "Do we really want to punish a 15 with this team? I'd rather punish we want to punish a 2 seed with this team. Let's punish a 3 seed with this team."
Yeah, I agree with you on that, especially if they win out and then sweep the conference tournament, which they would have to do, of course.
John, over in the Southern Conference, East Tennessee State now 8-0 after pick up another win tonight over Mercer.
Yeah, you would hope they would stay undefeated after beating teams like Mercer, West Carolina, but earlier in the week they had the big win at Furman that gave themselves a little bit of separation. But at the same time, UNC Greensboro also a game and a half themselves because they also beat the aforementioned Furman and also padded their record with wins against Mercer and Citadel.
A real fun game, that East Tennessee State Furman game. Just back and forth the whole game.
Actually, I thought that one of the teams had a pretty big lead and it was a comeback, but maybe we watched different games, David.
No, we didn't. I just confused it with something. Yeah, East Tennessee State coming all the way back. Shut up!
Coming up this week, East Tennessee is going to be at Wofford and at Citadel. So the Wofford game real interesting with that Wofford team 6-1.
Saturday, that's a game to watch. Wofford's got the best offense, and East Tennessee State's got the best defense. And the game's in Wofford, so they got that sparkly brand new arena. This is potentially the game of the year in the SoCon. We'll see.
Yeah.
And Stalika, given that you are our major correspondent on these issues, can you give us a scouting report for Southern Wesleyan at Western Carolina?
Yeah.
Just a simple buzzer will suffice.
It's the Wesleyan West Cup. The Wesleyan West Cup.
Southland Conference, a couple of scores from tonight are not on that screen, but Nicholls State did win again, now 7-1 with a win at Lamar tonight. SFA falling to Central Arkansas tonight on the road, giving Nicholls sole possession of first place now, Rocco. You couldn't give me any report of them last week. How about this week?
Well, I can tell you that they've got a guy off the bench that scored 28 points. Roddy Peters came in off the bench, actually played 28 minutes, and he lit it up. 9 for 11 from the field, 10 for 12 from the line. Doesn't get much better of a game than that. And then, they also have another great contributor, Tavon Sadler. He poured in 22 in that Lamar win. But yeah, so I'm starting to learn a little bit more about this squad. Obviously, they're grabbing our attention. That win at Lamar, it's a quality road win in for this league standards. But we still want to see Nicholls State play Stephen F. We want to see him play Southeast Louisiana. We want to see him play New Orleans. Actually, I think they did play New Orleans. So, it looks like they'll be in the conversation for the long haul.
They
SFA.
Sealand this weekend. Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Right. Well, I just wanted to say I wanted to watch the SFA Central Arkansas game tonight, and I went to buy the one-day package because you know when basketball's as good as it is in the Southland, they want you to pay $5.95 a pop for it. But I couldn't get the video; it said there was problems, so I tried again and I tried again. I ended up trying 6 or 7 times. No, and they billed me for each time. So no, they should get buzzed.
I am buzzing them. There we go.
Yes, thank you.
We can't stop the buzzer. There we go.
And anyway,
all right.
The Nick Lamb Cup coming up this week. Nicholls State and Lamar.
The SWAC. Talk about other teams that are getting our attention. Now, Arkansas Pine Bluff trying to do the impossible after 0-14 non-conference play, now 7-0. Sweeping this incredibly tough week at Prairie View and then at Texas Southern. And that game at Texas Southern Monday night, it not only can it happen, but this game, Texas Southern had a 3-point lead with about 3 seconds left in the game when Pine Bluff hit a 3-pointer to tie it. And Texas Southern's nice, calm, cool, and collected head coach who's never done anything in his life just kind of somehow got called for a technical for being upset about it, and they lose the game on the technicals, David.
It was Mike Davis pulling a Mike Davis. It was just he Davised. I guess that's what it is. But yeah, I mean, talk about an ill-timed technical foul. I didn't see it. I just heard about it. I hope it's on video somewhere. Can we pull that up? Do we have the resources to do it? But it was spectacular. Just down in flames. But anyway, I think we're trying to work.
Indiana fans going crazy for him again.
Yeah.
Here's the upcoming week. Pine Bluff this week at home with Grambling and a tough test against the 6-1 Jackson State team. Rocco, do they keep going 2 more this week?
Man, these guys don't get any time to rest. They just keep getting thrown through the gauntlet, but they've been surviving. It's amazing.
Yeah.
How could you bet against them? We've got to stay on the horse.
Yeah.
They're going to do it.
In a big game coming up here against Jackson State, the top 2 teams, the Jack Pine Cup coming up. Looking forward to that.
They got to get past Grambling first.
Yeah. Grambling winning again. Yeah.
Summit League tonight, we saw South Dakota not only beat South Dakota State, but, John, they just pounded them tonight. And this South Dakota State had been looking so good before tonight's game.
Yeah, I found out about this result just as I was coming back home from another game that was on the radar, but I believe this was also a little bit of a revenge factor for South Dakota last year, who had won the regular season in the Summit, but ended up losing a tough one in the conference tournament semifinals.
Right.
Yeah.
And that semifinal game was down to the wire. That was a heartbreaker.
It really was. This rivalry, I mean, it's always been kind of a rivalry, but the last few editions of it, starting with last year's game in the tournament, have been kind of, the heat's getting jacked up a little bit between these two. Not that it wasn't there already. It is a rivalry game, but some fun storylines going on. And then tonight, just South Dakota State just blowing their doors off, or South Dakota just blowing their doors off.
Right, so, absolutely, yeah. And if you look at If you look at the Coyotes' schedule, they've only had 1 game at home that was actually a single-digit result. I'm sorry, there was 2 when they did lose to North Dakota State at home. But all their other home games, they've blown everybody out. And I know that it's been lesser competition in most cases. They did beat Drake by 30 at home. So this is a tough team at home, needless to say. And that last game of the season is a rematch between these two at South Dakota State. So let's just hope we stay neck and neck all the way, so that game means a lot.
Yeah.
Upcoming schedule, South Dakota State hosting Fort Wayne, probably the best of a fairly weak upcoming schedule for the Summit League.
Yeah.
Sunbelt, another team that's undefeated and 17-3 overall. It's, just the record itself kind of turns your head a little bit here, David. And that Louisiana team, even if their schedule has been pretty darn weak.
Yeah, and I see the coaches poll, at least one coach starting to vote for them, and is that going to get the attention of any of the other voters? Is this going to be a Murray State situation from a few years ago where they sneak into the rankings at number 25 simply based on that bloated record? But, winning at Arlington, that's probably one of the harder remaining games they have left. I think they could easily end up winning out, and if they are, where does that really put them?
Yeah, I mean, they got past their 2 toughest tests, Rocco. They're at Arlington, at Texas State. Can anyone beat them at this point?
I'm pretty sold. Yeah, I'm pretty sold. I think they can make it all the way through. But I do caution that the trip February 8th and 10th to Georgia State and Georgia Southern is usually really challenging for anybody in this league. So despite the fact that they're a better team than both of those, playing on the road is no joke. And I wouldn't be surprised if they lost one, if not both of those. But I could just as easily see them winning out. I think they're going to be fine in all the remaining home games, including the rematch with Arlington in mid-February. And then, a lot of the remaining home games are pretty favorable for them.
I want to say I think this is the first time since 2012 that Louisiana has gone this late unbeaten into their conference. Back in 2012, they also had a a legendary win at Western Kentucky where they somehow managed to get a power play at the end of the game and ended up getting a game winner going 6-on-5 at the Hilltoppers Arena.
Yeah. I remember.
There's the upcoming schedule at the Sun Belt. Louisiana hosted the 2 Alabama schools this week, South Alabama and Troy. One more conference to hit here. Rocco, New Mexico State just continues to win.
Yes, they do. And they look what they did to Utah Valley. So much for that being the game of the week. New Mexico State is sitting pretty. They've passed some tests already. I think they've gone through the first round. Actually, no, they're too short, but their next two are UMKC and Rio Grande Valley. So they're going to be, they got the road game at Utah Valley. They got Grand Canyon at home. It really comes down to this team just making sure they go 14-0 in the league, and it looks very realistic. I think they can do it. It'll be just an interesting conversation. I don't think they'll get in, but it'll be an interesting conversation if they can go 14-0 and lose in the finals.
Oh, I think you got to put them in if they do.
They also
that.
step out of conference this week for a huge home game against Northern New Mexico.
What?
I think Chad is skipping another storyline because the University of Missouri at Kansas City managed to lose to the College of William Gould. This will be the former University of Missouri at Rolla, where they were down 31-12 early in the game. But in all seriousness, one of the reasons they actually do these non-D1 games is because of the way the WAC schedule works. And I think Grand Canyon also said this. They did not want to go, I think, 2 weeks between home games. So they try to throw in one of these games just to keep their guys sharp.
Yeah.
The team of the people, David.
Yes.
Cal Baptist.
There they are.
This is the updated schedule. Or is this last week's?
No, I think that's last week.
Schedule. Or is that last week? Well, Salika, why didn't we bother updating it? I think they lost to Concordia last week. But okay.
Yeah. Well, we're not getting a real news or fake news debate again.
Right. It's fake news.
All right. Not going to get into that, but let me see here if we can't get some information on Cal Baptist. If you give me half a second, I can report on it. Cal Baptist, the team of the people, pick up, I believe, win over Azusa Pacific this week. David, do you know for certain about that?
What's that?
That was updated there. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, they did beat Azusa Pacific, and that's a big win because I think they were at the top of the ladder in the Pac West.
Yeah. So the team of the people,
Team of the
national.
I thought this was last week's schedule. This was this weekend. They did fall to Concordia. And they played a rematch with Azusa Pacific coming up on Thursday. So that schedule is correct. 14-4 overall, 7-3 in the Pac West right now.
Yeah, in national title contenders, tournament contenders. Yeah.
Okay. Under the radar top 10 lists.
Wow, we got another tie.
We have a tie for first place here again between the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers and the New Mexico State Aggies. What I found interesting, actually, is that Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky were tied last week. Middle Tennessee beat them, and yet somehow Western Kentucky actually moved up in our rankings. So good job, guys.
That was well. I still like this Western Kentucky team overall.
There's a reason for that, Chad. Middle Tennessee lost to Marshall before that.
Yeah, that is a very good point. At number 3, obviously, is that Middle Tennessee team. Number 4, Buffalo. You can't argue.
Way up there.
High.
Yeah.
And at number 5, that Loyola Chicago team we just discussed and how well they are playing right now.
Yeah, real well.
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, who we also just discussed, coming at 6.
Yeah,
So we've got that Vermont team.
these are solid teams. I mean,
Number
like you're
8,
looking at
Tennessee State. I mean, these are all dangerous teams in tournament. Even number 9, South Dakota.
yeah, South Dakota State, who's really good. If you haven't seen, well, unless you watched them tonight.
And number 10, Belmont, very, very dangerous team in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, so when I mean, this generally it falls between the 12 and the 14 line. I mean, these are not gimme games. I mean, they're games that you would expect the better seeded team to win, but not necessarily.
Our honorable mentions: Stephen F. Austin, Wright State, Old Dominion, Montana, South Dakota, and of course the Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions, which I'm very disappointed that I'm the only one who voted for them. You all need to fix this beginning next week, but absolutely deserving of an honorable mention.
Yeah.
On that note, let's pull this on down here, and let me run through each of you here. Any other final thoughts? Sleek, let me start with you.
If you're wondering why we decided to highlight some odd rivalries tonight, it may have started because of a little tweet that was sent out last night, because after Dayton beat Davidson and St. Louis lost at home to VCU, we can now begin the lovely Arch Baron Cup week that involves Dayton and St. Louis.
Yeah. It's the Arch Baron Cup.
Cup,
Yeah.
back in the high life again. Come on.
Yeah.
Rocco, any final thoughts?
I think I think that my final thought would be just looking at that UTR top 10 and letting that sink in for a second. 12 through 14, if it all comes out this way, I know there's probably going to be an upset or 3 in the conference tournaments. But if it does actually turn out this way and we maybe only lose one of those teams, it's going to be a heck of a first round, because I'm thinking in my head, the first seed line, second seed line are going to be pretty solid. But third and fourth and fifth now, there's a tiny bit of leeway where those teams have actually been knocked off, and you put them up against a strong team like anybody in our UTR top 10. It's going to be great television and probably a couple upsets.
All right, David.
Yeah, I just like one of the teams, like the South Dakota rivalry, it should be fun. I know that the first edition of it wasn't all that exciting, but still a lot of electricity from South Dakota in that game. It's going to be kind of fun watching those two play for a second and possibly and hopefully even a third time. How much fun would that be, those two going at it for the championship in the state of South Dakota? I don't like when conferences like that don't really protect their better seeded team and play tournaments at a predetermined site. But if that one plays out to where the two of them are facing each other in the championship game, that one's going to be kind of fun. And what's my other thought? It's gone. I had one, but it was gone. It's gone now.
I guess on that note, on behalf of John Sleek, Rocco Miller, and David Griggs, I want to thank everyone for joining us. It is a little after 11 o'clock now on Wednesday night, so I'm off to watch the end of the UC Riverside, UC Irvine in the Rivervine Cup. So have a great night, everybody.